A cruise ship vacation is known to many as the ultimate getaway. The concept is simple. Jump on a giant piece of metal that somehow floats, and from there you'll eat, sleep, and tan your way to a far-off land where you'll do it all over again. And yeah, you'll have an adventure or two along the way. But sometimes the experience you're expecting can be disappointing, to say the least. So when it comes to cruising, prior to even stepping foot on board the actual cruise ship, we often see perfection and bliss marketed to us through pictures, advertisements, and of course drink packages. Now, sometimes when we get there, the experience that we've been promised is quite the opposite. Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Jay and welcome to the Shiplife. So as somebody that has been on cruise ships both as an employee and as a passenger, I've had my experiences when it comes to cruising. And sometimes the things that we've been promised don't exactly match up. And what you see isn't always what you get. That's why in today's video, we are going to do an expectation versus reality cruise ship edition. Now, before we start, I hate to do this, but I have to. If you don't believe me, just go ahead and look at the comment section. This video is purely for entertainment purposes only, and it is in no way, shape, or form a full representation of what the cruising experience is like. So don't take things so personally. So first up, let's talk about embarkation day, aka the first day of your cruise. Now, this is naturally going to be an exciting day for a lot of people. Maybe you finally got that 1 week off of the year from your job. Maybe you get some time away from the kids, or you get to spend time with the family. Or maybe for the men out there, you finally get some time away from the old ball and chain. Well, that really wouldn't be possible because we all know that most men don't book. We don't book our own cruises, all right? That's just the reality of the situation. If you see men on the ship, typically their wives are the ones that booked it and dragged them along. But my point is, you finally get your chance to escape reality. But the truth is, you can't. So here's the deal. If you've never cruised before, you're probably thinking that you somehow just magically teleport onto the cruise ship on embarkation day, and the next thing you know, you're partying your life away, taking as many shots as you want without a single care in the world. Unfortunately, that couldn't be any further from the truth, because on embarkation day, you do have to go through the terminal and check-in process, and it can be a pain because it's the equivalent of an airport. And if you're somebody that maybe hasn't traveled internationally, especially during the pandemic, I gotta tell you, it can be extremely stressful because there are long lines, there's COVID tests, there's a lot of changing protocols that can make the process take a very long time. Now, yes, eventually you're going to get through that process and then you get on board the ship. Well, you could still encounter problems on board as well. Things ranging from getting lost trying to find your cabin, to maybe having the wrong cabin, to even losing your bag, all of which has happened to me in the past. So next up, let's talk about the LIDO deck. Now, this location is arguably one of the most popular spots on board any particular cruise ship. It's a place you can relax, grab a lounge chair, read a book, grab a drink, whatever your heart desires. But I gotta be straight up with you. When you get up there, it's war. This is because people up there are fighting for the prime real estate in the lounge chairs. You got people that maybe are lounge chair hoggers. They're going to take 1, 2, or 3 of the lounge chairs, and they're not going to let anybody else have it for the rest of the day. They do this by putting their book on top, and they just, expect people to just walk away. These people honestly irritate me, but that's not the point of today's video. When it comes to the LIDO deck, again, you gotta be out there and you gotta take your spot while you can. My suggestion, get there early, before the sun comes up, and claim your throne. After that, you should be good to go. You know what? I take that back. Good to go may be a little strong. This is because most cruise ships, especially the mega-sized ships that you see today, are the equivalent of small cities. So you have thousands of people trying to take up every single square inch of this particular area on board the cruise ship. You got kids yelling. So if you're trying to find a place to just kind of relax, sleep, nap, read a book, whatever the case may be, this may not be the best location for you, but just kind of feel it out because every cruise ship is different. Now, while we're diving into the topic of water, we got to talk about the hot tub or jacuzzi or whatever it is that you want to call it. So of course it's a great idea. Everybody likes the idea of being able to just soak and relax in some hot water while we have a drink or two. However, on the cruise ship, you got to keep in mind that everybody has the same idea. So you see the pictures of people just kind of having this space over to themselves, and it looks blissful and peaceful and beautiful. But again, everybody has the same idea. So when you got 50 people joining in with you in the hot tub and trying to recreate the hot tub time machine, it's not a good place to be. So personally, I avoid the hot tub at all costs. Because, it never really works out like you've seen in pictures. Moving on, let's talk about the ocean view. I do have to admit, there is nothing like being out in the open ocean, hearing the sounds of the waves, and depending on what side of the ship you're on, you might get an occasional beautiful sunset. But let's be real. You see these pictures and videos and images and whatnot, but it doesn't exactly match up with reality because after a while, this view becomes honestly kind of boring. And when you see the commercials that the cruise lines are showing you and that everybody else is trying to show you of Flipper the dolphin just kind of hanging around there on the side of the ship, chasing the ship and whatnot, it just does not match up whatsoever. You also got to take into consideration that you may have kids yelling if you're out by the LIDO deck or someplace in a public area. And then on top of that too, even if you got a balcony, let's say, you might have people bed wrestling on the balcony next to you. Or would it be balcony wrestling? Come on, we've all thought about doing it, or maybe you have. So next up, let's talk about your cruise ship stateroom, your cabin, your accommodation. So this will be your home away from home for a week or two, or however long you plan on cruising, and you want it to be as cozy as possible. However, sometimes what you've been promised doesn't exactly match up with reality. This is of course determined by whatever it is that you're willing to pay on board this particular cruise. So we've all seen the mansion-like rooms that are on board the cruise ship, and you wonder how that even fits on board the ship. Unless you're willing to dish out anywhere from $10,000 to $60,000, this is the type of room you'll be in. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. But you are going to be in typically a smaller cabin if you're somebody that, again, isn't willing to dish out some big bucks in order to get this major accommodation, like something like, I don't know, what do they have? The XL suite and all these other real cool Haven suites and whatnot with NCL. There's so many different options. Now, a big problem that a lot of people make when it comes to cruising is putting too many people into one room. I've seen rooms where there's like 5 people, you know, the parents and all the kids in one room. My suggestion is that if you're going to cruise, you got to do it right. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up to be somewhat disappointed and cramped like a sardine in a cabin. If you're booking with a bunch of people, you're sailing with a bunch of people, maybe just get what you would call a connecting cabin. That way you have 2 cabins where you can go through just one door inside the cabin and, you know, you can have a good time on your cruise without being cramped up. All right, now let's talk about working on cruise ships. As most of you know, I have worked for both Carnival Cruise Lines and Norwegian Cruise Lines, and both experiences for me overall were pretty good. But when it comes to cruising overall and cruise ship employees, the cruise lines pitch the idea that you can travel the world and you can make amazing friends and amazing money. Well, in most cases, I hate to break it to you, that's not really how it is. Now, I could make a full dedicated video, but I'm going to give you guys just the plot points for now. When it comes to the money, it's complicated to explain because you got people from different parts of the world and whatnot, but the money is typically just okay. But a lot of people end up broke because either they got bills, they're sending a lot of money home, or it's just a simple fact that they have bad spending habits on board. Because when you're traveling to all these islands and whatnot, typically you don't have a lot of time off. So you got a lot of crew members that are buying a lot of beer and whatnot at the crew bar, or when they finally get off the ship, they're paying top dollar for the excursions if they aren't getting a discount or something of that nature, which sometimes they can, sometimes they can't. Now, when it comes to making friends, I say this all the time, and this is how I explain it to people. Being on a cruise ship, you are kind of in a combination of high school, college, and military all rolled into one. And there's also like an understandable hierarchy as well. So typically you have like the spa people stay with the spa people. The officers, well, they kind of, you know, they have a pretty high rank. So they get the girls and the guys and you know, whatever their heart desires. But entertainment stays with entertainment, so on and so forth. And again, like I said, with the officers, you got the ranking. Now let's talk about the rooms as well. You have these cozy prison-like environments that everybody loves, of course, because it is what it is. You got to take it or leave it. Now, I did get lucky when I was working on board cruise ships. I had what's called a Jack and Jill cabin. It's pretty tiny, and it comes with what's known as a shoilet. It's a shower and toilet combination that's actually pretty disgusting, and I'm kind of glad I'm out of there. But I got a better deal than most people, because when you see some people on board these ships, they may be sharing a room with somebody else, or 2 or 3 people. So it just depends on your contract at the end of the day. But 9 times out of 10, what you've been promised doesn't exactly match up with reality when working on cruise ships. Now, moving on, let's talk about the cruise ports, because I do believe there's a common misconception among people, mainly the ones that primarily just haven't taken a lot of cruises. So when you sail on a cruise ship, yes, you are traveling to some of the most beautiful places on planet Earth. However, sometimes when you arrive to these places, you don't exactly take in the beauty immediately. because when you get there, yes, you are probably expecting there's going to be a parade and free drinks, and there are at some ports depending on where you go, but most of the time the ports are either getting worked on, they're run down, or even worse, you are being highly solicited to. People are doing everything they can to get you to buy stuff at the markets and whatnot, and the only saving grace is that maybe you're already with a group that has booked an excursion, because when you get off into the ports, it's like a Nassau, Bahamas or something like that, or Ocho Rios, Jamaica, you got people that are trying to sell you excursions, they're trying to sell you merch, and sometimes they even straight up offer to sell you drugs or girls, or that's just my personal experience, but stuff like that. And it gets extremely annoying, and it just kind of takes us away and brings us back to reality. Now, if you've experienced something like this and you know a port that I'm talking about, or maybe it kind of, matches up with what I'm saying, let me know in the comment section below. Now, of course, I do have to touch on the private beaches as well, because yes, the private beach idea that the cruise lines take you to, they do sound nice in theory. You get exclusivity, you're in a safe place. If you bought a drink package, that's typically valid as well, but there are problems with private beaches that I simply don't like. For starters, yes, on a cruise ship, you are packed like sardines there, right? But when you get to these private islands, typically the only people that are allowed in certain islands, at least at the beaches anyway, are the people that are on board the ship. So you go from one place with people that you've been seeing all over the place to another location with the same people that you've been seeing all over the place when you just want some privacy and you want to just kind of get away. Now also, the cruise lines, they kind of got you at that point. The idea is to keep getting you to spend money. Even if somebody has a drink package or whatever, they're going to do whatever they can to upsell you on excursions, on food, drinks, whatever the case may be. That way they can continue making money off of you, because that's the whole concept of a cruise. They make money, or just that's the idea of a company to begin with. But anyway, guys, there's also the fact that let's say you do decide to kind of wander off on your own and go on some adventure on one of these private islands. If you go away from the man-made beach and you try to go to another part of a beach that, let's say, not a lot of people are at, just be prepared to pay in blood. And I mean this quite literally, because there's going to be a lot of sharp rocks over there and jellyfish and whatever the case is, all right? So just be mindful of that. So I do also have to talk about one of the biggest elements on board a cruise ship, and that's the food, the dining options that are available while you're on board. Because the image is kind of put out there oftentimes that you could just sit down and eat as much lobster bisque with an ocean view as much as your heart desires, which if you've been on a cruise, we all know that's not exactly the case. So the way it works as far as their business model and how they operate with cruise ships, typically you have, let's say, the lower tier, which is like the buffet. They've got like your basic fish, like your tilapia, your hamburgers, your hot dog, which is pretty cool, your pizza, which is some place that I'm typically frequenting whenever I'm on board a cruise ship. Then they have your mid-tier, which is usually like your free specialty dining options. That one keeps everybody happy for the most part. And then you got your top tier. That's where the lobster bisque is too. Now, of course, this is understandable that you do have to typically pay for these kinds of locations. But again, this is one of those situations where, let's say maybe you want some prime real estate and you want that cruise image that you saw on an advertisement, that you're just kind of looking out the window and you can see this beautiful view while you have this amazing dinner. The problem with all of this is that everybody on board, the thousands of people, want this same view. So the chances of you getting a window view without showing up early is extremely rare. You're probably going to be packed somewhere in the middle. There's going to be somebody next to you that you're bumping elbows with. At least that was my experience on one cruise line that I won't mention. But either way, just understand that your expectation versus your reality when it comes to dining on board. The food is probably going to be amazing, but the overall experience is not going to be as advertised. This is like looking at a McDonald's hamburger picture and expecting the real thing to actually look like the picture. It's just not going to be that way. So now that you've almost survived another episode of the Shiplife, if you guys are enjoying the content, please hit that thumbs up. I guess if you didn't like it, it only hurt my feelings a little bit, but you can't hit that thumbs down. It is what it is. Also, subscribe if you haven't already. That way you can get notified whenever I make more videos just like this one. Now for number 10, we do have to talk about the onboard entertainment. So I will admit, when it comes to the overall entertainment on board any particular cruise ship, it does somewhat come down to personal preference. But whenever you look at the commercials and advertisements by cruise lines, they make it look as if you're going to be partying 24/7. Maybe you're going to be at the casino winning the jackpot of $50 million. All this stuff is just kind of put in to kind of, bring you into the fold, get butts in seats. But it doesn't always match up with reality. For starters, I do gotta say the shows. Personally, you guys know that I was in entertainment on board cruise ships. I worked for the Harlem Globetrotters. I worked literally all over the world as a dancer and entertainer. However, I'm unfortunately a little judgmental when it comes to overall entertainment. And you will see if you sailed on multiple cruise ships, maybe with multiple lines, typically what you'll see is the same singer, song, dancer shows kind of melting together. They all look the same. There's your bingo, and typically there'll be a comedian on board a particular ship. If the comedian is trash though, it's gonna kind of put a damper on your vacation. People often lose at the casino. I say this all the time. If you're trying to entertain yourself at the casino, the house always wins. But if you have the money to spend, I'm not here to judge. I just personally don't gamble. Now, also, you got to look at everything else from like the karaoke. A lot of people love the karaoke, which is typically a packed area that you do have to book in advance if you can. Now, personally, you're probably not going to catch me singing any karaoke because people will start jumping off the ship. My voice is horrible. Can't sing worth a lick. But overall, I'm just saying there is going to be some down times on board the cruise ship, and you're not just going to be, dancing the night away, if that makes any sense. And I know a lot of people out there maybe aren't for that. Some people are, but I'm just kind of putting that out there because a lot of people have the expectation that their entire cruise is going to be filled with fun, laughter, whatever the case is, just overall entertainment. So overall, I do believe that cruising is a great little to no hassle form of travel. It's something that I believe everybody could enjoy given that they sail with the right cruise lines and under the right conditions. Now, if you also happen to be sailing during the pandemic, you'll see that you essentially have your own yacht. There's not a lot of people on board these particular ships, and you can legitimately enjoy yourself. Now, have any of you gotten a dose of reality while on board a cruise ship? Let me know in the comment section below. We're gonna leave it right here. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope all of you enjoyed, and I'll see you real soon. Take it easy.